out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to the 72nd edition of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast, recorded here in central London, just off historic Abbey Road. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to last week's show on our reunion episode, where Jackson and I finally got together here in London after living here for 3 years, after COVID had kept everyone from traveling to so many of the destinations that they wanted to over the last couple of years. We finally connected, got to take a tour of a bunch of classic rock haunts all around London town, and got to review what turns out to be Genesis' second to last show ever at the O2 down in central London there. So we appreciate you tuning in for that. This week, we're really excited. We've got a couple of special guests on here whose names you may know. It's Deborah Bonham and Peter Bullick. They're the husband-wife duo who've been touring together for a long time. They worked with Paul Rodgers, and maybe you in the U.S. saw them on the Stars Align tour, where Deborah was first on the bill, then Ann Wilson from Heart, Jeff Beck, and Paul Rodgers. And Peter Bullick played with Paul Rodgers in his band. Paul really likes Peter's tone and selected him as the perfect Paul Kossoff replacement, as he did his Free Spirit tribute to his first real band, Free. Now you might recognize Deborah's last name, Bonham. Yes, she is the sister of the late great John Bonham. But we're not really here to talk to her about Led Zeppelin. We're here to talk about this amazing new album that they put together. It's full of blues covers, and it's called Bonham Bullick, and they whittled it down from about 100 ideas and created these amazing covers of songs. Some you'll recognize. Some are classic blues covers. Some are more modern, and maybe you wouldn't know them as well. But their treatment is amazing. And those of you who don't know Peter Bullick's guitar tone, you're missing out. This guy sounds incredible. And of course, he's been honing his chops for decades. I was fortunate enough once to see them a little bit. Saw Deborah a little bit on the Stars Align tour, and I got to see Peter play with Paul Rodgers on the Stars Align tour. But this is a great album. Once I heard it, I heard an advanced copy of it, I knew that our listeners would want to learn more about it. And you should really check it out. It's fantastic, and it's out April the 29th. Now, before we get into that, I want to say, as usual, we want you to subscribe and download wherever you get your podcast, be it Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Good Pods, Google Play, anywhere you get them, and consider giving us a good review if you enjoy the show. It just helps us find more fans like yourselves. And be sure that you tweet us at ugly_werewolf or at actionjack72. Now this week, you'll notice that Jackson is not with us during the interview. Jackson had a family emergency to take care of, but we hope all is well with him. He should be back next week, and we look forward to welcoming him back. So it's just me on my own talking to Deborah Bonham and Peter Bullick of Bonham Bullick. And I got to tell you, they're two fantastic people. Very, very nice, very open, very warm, very generous of spirit. Peter Bullick's quite a character. I bet he'd be the kind of guy you'd love to bump into in the pub and spend an hour or two with. Sounds like he's got some great stories. But Deborah was very generous, not only sharing all their thoughts on their careers this far, but of course a little bit of the obligatory talk about the influence her brother had on her. So without further ado, let's jump into it. It's my interview with Deborah Bonham and Peter Bullick here on The Wolf. There we go. Oh, here's the man.
How you doing?
Hey, Pete. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Great. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having us.
This is the man with the tone. Listen, I got to tell you, Jackson and I was just telling Deborah, my partner in crime, Jackson, he had a family emergency, couldn't be here. He's sorry. He can't be. It'll just be me today. But we're guitar freaks. And how we met is we were freshmen in college. We roomed together. And within 2 minutes of saying, hi, I'm Mac, nice to meet you, I was putting a picture of a poster of Jimmy Page with the double neck red Gibson on our wall, right? So we've been into guitar and the tone of rock guitar for so long. And we get a lot of people who send us records like, hey, here's our new record. Would you like to interview him or have him on the show? And most of the time it's like, yeah, okay, that's great. Thanks. Maybe not a fit. But as soon as Dave sent me your all's record and I heard your tone, I'm like, Jackson, you got to hear this guy. We got to have them on the show. This kicks ass, man. So we are really glad to be talking to you.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that. That tone goes back a long way, probably to the Peter Greens and Paul Kossoffs and people like that. That was what the tone that got me off. And I can remember getting my first amplifier from a Marshall from an electronics secondhand store across from my school. And the guitar version of the Marshall valve head it was so much more expensive than the bass version. So I picked up the bass version for like 90 quid, 120 bucks.
Gotcha.
When I was about 11 years old. So that's 10 years ago. No, maybe a lot more than that.
You went grey very young, didn't you?
I did. I went grey at 21. Anyway, I'm digging your beard, just like you're digging my tan.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Us white bearded guys. You get a little gray in there, you got to stick together, my friend.
It's about beard tone as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I'll get like Marshall Head, and in the shop says, the only difference between the guitar one and the bass one is you snip this little resistor, right? And that's all you need to do. So we did that, and it sounded peachy. About 30 years later, I found out that Kossoff did the same thing.
Is that
all
right?
Those years. Yeah, just totally accidental. And a lot of the guitarists in the days used bass heads rather than the guitar heads. So, yeah, an accident, but in search of tone.
Excellent.
But as well, pickups as well are a big deal as well. I have a pal who handmade me some pickups. And whereas guitar pickups, a lot of manufacturers made their guitars very loud, so that a kid in a shop would go, "I want the loud one, Daddy." But these ones are actually very quiet, so you actually have to drive the amp a lot. So the guitar is actually quiet.
You're giving away your trademarks, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll say no more. Dave Walsh did pickups. Yeah, great.
He's got to do an interview with Guitarist magazine. I mean, all these interviews, he keeps going on about guitars. And I sit here going like this.
I keep having to wake her up,
I'm like, wake me when it's finished. All I know is put your guitar on and get that sound, and that's great.
And then whenever it gets about her childhood, I'll be...
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, yes, there's going to be some obligatory childhood questions. We want to get into Bonham Bullick because when I heard this, I got really excited. Someone who grew up listening to the blues, maybe didn't understand it. I just knew I loved the guitar work of the blues and the way the blues sounded. Being a white kid from the suburbs of America, maybe I hadn't lived enough to appreciate what the blues really were, but the sound of it is the same, right?
Exactly what I've been saying, yeah, absolutely.
It's probably why we were sort of waited till we were this age to be confident to do it some sort of justice.
Yeah, exactly that.
As a 21-year-old, too many other things going on our head from white suburbia.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
30 years later, having lived a bit, lost a bit, and hurt a bit, and laughed a bit. And
you can just bring some of it.
And overindulged in some things, and all that sort of stuff all comes to the pie.
Well, that's kind of what it takes. Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, before we get into that, I know a lot of our listeners probably don't know your all's origin stories of like starting your careers, and I'm going to let Deborah go first here, Peter. But, I think a lot of people or some people may be familiar with your original back in the day pop princess kind of For You in the Moon album. And I listened to it, and I also listened to one that you've kind of subsequently released. I think it's Looking Back at the Moon, where you did sessions from around that time. And I know obviously you're very young then. It sounds like it was produced out of your control. Like they didn't give you a whole lot to say out of final production.
No.
But it was also very of the time. Whereas I feel like what you're doing now is for all time. It's timeless. Whereas then it was like, okay, we've got a girl we want to turn into a pop princess. We've got the formula. So you lay down your tracks, sweetie. That's not me, that's them. You lay down your tracks, and we'll take care of it from there.
You've got it in one.
Fantastic. We don't have to talk about that now. You've nailed it.
Yeah, you got it in one. I mean, it wasn't even you lay down the track, sweetie. It was you just sing, sweetie. Mm-hmm. And shorten the skirt a bit, I was a fish out of water, complete fish out of water. I mean, that wasn't me. The songs that I wrote had a quite sort of a folky blues feel. I guess Career Records knew what they were doing, but because it did sell well.
Mm-hmm. It was very Euro, wasn't it?
It was recorded in Germany.
So it sold well in Germany, but a surprise for that was it sold really well in South America. And still to this day, the data, statistics, YouTube views, all that kind of stuff that you get to see, it's all South American countries on all those tracks.
I mean,
it's incredible.
They took me to Germany. In the sessions, no one spoke English, so I was really, just. But the one good thing that happened was I met Tony Carey from Rainbow, who Richie Blackman was Rainbow. He did Rainbow Rising and all of that, the big album. Tony was a co-owner of the studio, and he was an American guy an American guy living in Germany. And that was great, and he played some bass on one of the tracks, but I just kept thinking, wow, what are they doing to my music? This is crazy. I was quite a hippie, I just really a hippie sort of blues to sort of folky, but certainly not 80s rock, and then it ended up going very 80s rock. But
of course, 80s rock was new then, so you wouldn't have been a fan then because it was all just new, wasn't it? And you weren't the pioneer of 80s rock.
I wasn't a fan the whole way through.
It was an 80s rock accident where somebody turned your stuff into 80s rock.
Just not a fan at all. But anyway, so it, that's you nailed it. That's exactly how it was.
Well, you couldn't take the credit, but then you couldn't take the blame either, I guess, is part of it.
Well, the issue that happened was I got that deal anonymously because I sent off my demos, and I just purposely didn't want to put the name Bonham there because of all that would entail. And, of course, we'd only lost John in 1980. So I didn't do that. And I got this deal.
This would have been about 83, wouldn't it? Because the album came out in 85.
It was about 82 when I first started talking to... 82, yeah.
Okay.
When I first started talking to Carrere. And, but it soon came out. And when and people have said to me since, well, you could have changed your name. But no matter what I would have done, it would have come out, So I just thought, okay, brace yourself. Here we go. This is going to happen.
And plus, when you just lost your big brother who was your hero called Bonham, you don't want to change your name, do you?
And why run from that? It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah. Oh, God, no, not at all. But, it is quite a double-edged, was, not now. Although, as we've just seen, it's still, he does create this incredible, everybody wants to know about John. And I get that, and it's fine. And I'm incredibly proud of him for, everything he did. And I'm biggest Led Zeppelin fan. But back then, it was a real eye-opener, a real eye-opener. And I struggled. I really struggled. I struggled with the music. I struggled with the interviews. I struggled with a lot of it. And Carrere eventually went into liquidation. They ceased trading. And so that sort of put an abrupt end to my music career with them. And I'd signed a contract in perpetuity. So I was pretty much stuck.
With the production company.
Yeah. I couldn't get out of it. It was down to me to go to court and all that. So I had a good 10 years from that album, working in the industry, playing gigs, just paying my dues, really. And I think if that album had have really, really taken off, I don't really think I'd be here today, and I certainly wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. The path has been the right path for me to get to where I am now. I'm glad nothing really happened back then, that it's been a tough path, but it's been one well traveled, and I needed to get there to make the album that we've made today, so I don't have any regrets at all that it went that way. I've learned a lot, that's the way it is.
No, you've earned your spot, and you were born to sing this blues, soulful music. And maybe at 23 or so, that's not what you're going to be singing. But now, absolutely, you've earned it, and you do it as well as anyone here.
Oh, thank you.
Although there was a song, there were some songs on there, like Pretender, I think, was on the Looking Back. This is a good song. Yeah. Yes, it's kind of got that 80s AOR sound all over it, but this is still good stuff. You had the chops. It's just that wasn't really who you were at your core.
No, you're right. And I think this is, it's all been a development. Years ago, we did a tour in America with my nephew, Jason Bonham, and we were going down a store. We're playing our own music.
97.
97, yeah.
Okay.
We were going down an absolute storm at these venues, queues of people trying to buy our homemade little CD, And but Sony came to one of the shows and then wanted a meeting when we got to Los Angeles, And we thought, because the crowd were going mental and everything was great. And actually, they weren't really interested in what we were doing. What they wanted me to do was a Lady Sings the Blues album then.
Okay.
Doing Billie Holiday. Etta James, you know, sort of famous songs. You know, I walked away from that because I just thought, no, you know, like Peter said a bit earlier, and like you said, coming from white suburbia, I wasn't ready. I hadn't gone through enough to be able to bring the blues emotion.
Genuinely.
Yeah, genuinely.
Rather than a lot of people phone it in, I think is the expression you like to use in America. And it's,
yeah.
We don't do phoning it in.
No, and I just, it wasn't going to be organic. I just thought, you know, no. He was sat there. He says this now.
I was going, phone it in, thinking about it. Hang on, get my hand in camera there. Yeah, thinking about it.
Well, they were sitting there saying, you know, and we could do this, and we can get her a Grammy, and we can do this, and we'll put this amount of money into it. He's going, great, and I'm going, no, I'm not doing that. So that was something I walked away. And again, I don't regret it, because then we went on to make other albums, the Old Hyde and things, and met great people. And yeah, it's all a learning curve. But now it felt the time's right, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's switch over to you then, Pete. I mean, an Irishman who I guess grew up listening to some killer rock and roll, but somewhere along the line, you heard a guitar and said, oh, that's what I need to do, right? So can you tell me a little bit about how you came in?
Yeah, I'm about 7 years old. So I had an uncle who's 3 years older than me. So he was sort of leading the path for me, or parting the waves for me, to sort of follow in his shirt tails kind of thing, or coat tails, whatever you call it. And we just listened to like parents' records. No, I wasn't lifting his shirt tails. So it would have been anything from like the Beatles and the Stones to Roy Orbison and the Shadows and Burt Whedon and all those kind of things that had a guitar going twang.
You can hear Eddie Cochran in you.
Loved Eddie Cochran and oh crikey, his name's Dwayne Eddy. He was another one. I just loved the kind of Dwayne Eddy twang that he could get and all that kind of stuff. And then then the more sustained kind of things like the Beano album, Clapton and John Mayall. Just kind of blew me away with that Les Paul. And it's funny, Clapton didn't really blow me away after that album, but that one was a big shocker. And then Kossoff was a natural kind of, oh shit, Kossoff's still doing that kind of vibe.
Right.
Yeah. And so we just listened. We got access to those records in the early 70s through babysitters or aunties or parents and stuff like that. And then, yeah. So we were too young to see it first off. So we were late on parade, but we'd sit in our bedroom, and it was a bit Belfast was a bit of a war zone back then. So we didn't really want to hang about the streets, because you get caught up in stuff. Even if you weren't caught up in a bomb or shot, you'd be caught up in a bad crowd that would want to go and shoot someone, and that would be your way of life. So we hid in the bedrooms and we played guitars, and this was our way out of the war, really. And the people we could go and see were maybe once or twice a year, and it'd be Rory Gallagher and a band called Horselips, which were a folk rock band with a long-haired guitar player with a Les Paul with a great tone. So he almost played the blues over the top of folk rock, and it was great. So they were our kind of early heroes that we could see live physically. And not till I moved to England in 85 or 86 would I be able to sort of get the experience that everybody else in the world had been privy to, like in America and all that kind of stuff. But so that was all just bedroom stuff, and have our own little bands at the school disco and stuff. We'd have a 30-minute slot, so we'd get to cut our chops live, and do a bit of Chuck Berry at the end. We'd always finish off the show with Johnny Be Good, which I think everybody did around the world at that time.
Nice.
In fact, to this day, we sort of at the end of our shows, we kind of we don't do Johnny Be Good, Chuck Berry, but we used to throw in Led Zeppelin's Rock and Roll, because we don't do any Led Zeppelin in the show because of that always getting linked to it. So if it's been a great crowd and a great show, we'll throw that in as an encore for a bit of fun. I call it our Johnny Be Good, but it's Led Zeppelin's Rock and Roll, but it's that thank you at the end of the night, let's go mad to the audience. But we had to calm that down because YouTube came out and everybody just filmed that. So all you'd see on YouTube all of a sudden was Deborah Bonham, rock and roll, Deborah Bonham, rock and roll, Deborah Bonham. We were going, oh no! Instead of our other songs.
So they axed their own legs, the audience, really, didn't they? Instantly, I just said, okay, we can't do that,
Which is a bit like some of those articles that just focus on the John Bonham things. You think,
right, yeah. Well, look, my earliest memory, in fact, I just was on a show called The Hook Rocks. He's a guy out of Chicago who does great stuff. And we're both part of this Pantheon Podcast network of about 100 great podcasters who are all about music, not just rock and roll, but lots of great stuff. Pamela DeBar's got her Pajama Party podcast on there. He was talking about my origins. I'm like, the earliest rock and roll memory I have is my dad coming home from work in the 70s, and he wasn't in a bad mood. He was like happy to be home that night, and he put on his old records from like the 50s and 60s. And I distinctly remember playing Johnny B. Good by Chuck Berry, me taking the pillow off the couch and beating it like a drum. I was about 4 years old, and that's what put the rock and roll into my DNA. And since then, I don't know if it's been uphill or downhill, but it's been a part of me ever since.
I'll tell you another one which I still to this day love is Bill Haley's "Rock Around the Clock." The guitar,
yep, he played that night too.
The guitar solo in that, it's like you got to have that. You got to have that in your DNA. So you got, somebody's just going to pull that out of the bag some night. And you go, hey. In fact, we did the name drop. We did a little private party thing with Robert Plant, and he used our band as Debbie's band as the backing band. And he was just shouting out tunes, and he was quite amazed how we're a little bit younger than Robert, but he's just throwing out these rock and roll tunes because he likes his rock and roll. Yeah. And we were bang, we straight in. And you can see him singing, and he turned around. I think he was trying to catch us out, but we were like, shivers down my backbone. We caught him in all of them. It was like, and afterwards,
well done. Yeah, well done. So, and then eventually you guys meet, of course, have a musical kinship, and then you start to make a couple records together, right? I mean, Old Hyde is one I think you like very much, Deborah. It was about 2004. It's 20 years after kind of your first record. I know you did some stuff in Japan and stuff like that. And then Duchess, which, I mean, I think you're using the same band that you are now. Like, all those guys. Was it Gerard and Richard? And Ian, I don't want to leave anybody out. But it seems like you guys are pretty tight. And you've been doing this for a while now, So was it that experience of, all right, we did some great originals, but now let's dive deep into kind of what got us here? I mean, was that kind of the impetus on this?
Yeah. It really, yes, I think without a doubt it was. And it had always been in the back of our minds because of that conversation back in 97, I always fancied doing it, but just never thought that I or the band, we were ready, And then after the band, Paul Rodgers picked the band to back him as well. And we did, and I opened up for them. We did a UK Free Spirit tour in 2017. And I mean, just about every guitarist wanted that gig. And Paul picked Pete because of his tone it reminded him a bit of Kossoff, but, he just could. It was Pete he wanted, really, wasn't it?
I think, obviously, I'm incredibly flattered by this, but Paul never told me what to do or anything. He just went, and I've heard other stories about, when he's had bands and stuff and his input. He kind of picked our band and told us the songs he'd like to do and left us to go and rehearse them. And then he came in for the last couple of days of rehearsal. He never told any of us what to do. He never said, I want you to play it like this. He just had this absolute faith of he wanted a band to interact like a band. He wanted to be part of a band.
Yeah.
So he had enough faith in us to know that what we brought to the table was going to be. And in some of the articles and stuff he's written, I like the term he used to describe me. He said I had the vulnerability of Kossoff. Didn't say I was there's no big, but I don't know, some people might think that that's a strange term to use, but I kind of identify with that. The vulnerability. It's like sometimes I can go off on one and get lost. And it's
great. So from that, and then we took it to the US and we did the 2008 Stars Align tour with Jeff Beck and Ann Wilson. And Quarter Valley Records, who had put out a Live at the Albert Hall from the 2017 shows with Paul and the band. They came to Los Angeles show and the Nashville show and said, we want to do something with you. I was absolutely, this is fantastic, because at this stage in our career, I didn't think that was really going to happen. And then when that happened, and of course the band were really playing great, I just thought, this needs to be a whole new project. It needs to be a band project. We need, it's always been the Deborah Bonham Band. And it's all of us, because we've been together for so long. And it's it's an absolute arse-kicking band. I mean, they're a phenomenal band.
Yeah, it is.
Really. They're just fantastic. And it's an absolute pleasure to be on that stage and sing with them, which was what Paul found. And I said, we really got to do it, it's got to be a band project, this. And that's when the idea of doing, these covers, but our interpretations of them, and not just, my only criteria was, listen, I'm not going to go down the total standards road. I don't want it all,
right?
All the songs that everybody's done to death and everybody knows, I don't want to do that, because they have been done to death, and and that's great, but I just wanted to take it somewhere different. So a couple of those, but some classics, couple of classics, and some obscure as well, and contemporary as well. So that's where the idea sort of came from, wasn't it? How we got to this place, and also, like you said, all those songs. It's all about what's influenced us through all those years. You're absolutely on the money there. That's incredible, because no one else has mentioned that, and it really is that. Because you don't just hear the blues in this album, you can hear all the other things that have influenced us,
Sure.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. So it just felt right. It was the right time to do it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and because Deborah was producing it, she kind of knew what to pick that the band could handle, or what we would... There's about 100 songs that started off with, from lots of friends suggesting stuff and everything, and it whittled down to 13. I think it whittled down to 13, and we thought, if we record 13, we'll do the 11 best on the album. Thinking there'll be 2 we'll be unhappy with, that we'll toss those up.
Sure, or B-sides, whatever.
Yeah. We kept all 13, because we can kind of... It's hard to have a favourite. It'll be a different favourite each week. So it's... Yeah, and it was just because... and we probably spent more time on this than we would have done on writing our own songs. Funny enough, because you'd think this would be a quicker project, a faster project than writing your own songs.
Oh,
it was the entire opposite, because we had to make the songs so different to the original. We
didn't. I mean, it wasn't that we had to make it. I mean, it was organic, really. It wasn't a forced issue. It was just like, look, we need to think outside the box here. I'd already got the cogs going, because when I was listening and picking the songs, I was already thinking, yeah, I can hear where they'll go. We can take this. So it was already that sort of natural thing that we brought us to it, rather than just doing a straight copy, which you can't do.
No one was sad.
We didn't want to.
No.
Yeah. We wanted to do something different. And
I think what some things we've sort of said about is what Joe Cocker did to Ringo Starr's.
Well, that was rather phenomenal.
Or what... now, we're shooting a bit high on
that. But we kept that in. That was what we were looking at,
Or more recently, what the Georgia Satellites did to one of Ringo Starr's songs, "Don't Pass Me By." That was brilliant.
Yeah, we did sort of, that was there. Like we need to think outside the box, and it was a challenge. It was a massive challenge. It took us out of our comfort zone, because when you write your own stuff, you pretty much know where it's going to go from the get-go.
Sure.
So it was a massive challenge, and we were right out of the comfort zone. But it was great at this stage in our career to get stretched like that. Suddenly became exciting, and now we're playing it on stage. It's bloody great, It's all of a sudden we've got this complete new energy and new life because of these new songs.
I think we've got about 6 of them we're doing live at the minute.
Yeah, and that's
set. Yeah.
Really.
Are you rehearsing right now? Because you got to play later this month, don't you?
Yeah, we start rehearsals again next week, so we'll probably maybe squeeze in another couple. We'll have 8 out of the 13.
It's just such good fun. It's great fun, and it's a great fun band. I mean, we do have such a laugh. I always say to everybody, if you're not enjoying it on that stage, why the hell would anybody watching you enjoy it?
Right.
So we really do love what we're doing, and I think these songs have brought that a bit. It's given us this whole new way of looking at things. So
and each player after the production, where maybe Deborah had input into what everybody was playing and stuff, but once after the production and the recorded version, once we're out there live, everybody's entrusted with their own kind of free reign and interpretation to.
I didn't tell you what to play. I just know how to get the best out of you. Tell us what not to play. Shut up.
I
just had a big electric cow prod. Don't play that.
So that brings up a question that Jackson had. It's like, what are the benefits and challenges of being a married couple in a touring band?
The benefits are.
I'm going to let him say this.
Yeah, the benefits are I haven't been to the clap clinic in 30 years.
That's a good benefit, my friend.
Yeah,
that's a positive. Even though the test is negative, that's a positive for you. Yes.
Yeah, I've got to pay a fortune for somebody else's negative test.
Dear. What is the benefit? We're both very, very lucky. We met 31 years ago. Instantly, from that day, we've been together. Stop it. We've been together.
I'm still in the clap clinic.
Pretty much. And it'll be a different type of clap you'll get in a minute.
Yeah.
Slap. We've been together ever since, sort of 24/7, and that's a long time,
That tells me something.
I think what's got us through is that we both have immense mutual respect for what we do. Him as a guitarist, me as a singer. So when all else fails and there's a massive row and I've moved to another hotel and all of that sort of stuff goes on, and that'll be over something ridiculous,
Right.
So, nothing to do with music. It's the music that keeps us back together. And we actually do love each other, don't we?
Yes. Oh.
Wonderful.
Look, you've got a little tear in your eye now. Look, that was so sweet.
But we do, we've got massive respect for each other musically, and that's what does it, if all else fails. And it pretty much doesn't, because we've got different... Are
you still answering that one?
Yeah, I've got myself in a rabbit hole, haven't I? Okay, I'll shut up.
Hi, this is Christy Alexander Hallberg, author of the novel Searching for Jimmy Page, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast.
Well, we'll come back to the album because there's some tracks that I just stand out to me and I want to ask you a little bit about. But I want to go back to the Stars Align tour because I did see you guys on that tour in 2018. I had always wanted to see Paul, and they said Stars Align tour. And I'd seen Jeff a couple times, so I'm like, yeah, okay, who else is there? Ann Wilson, okay, I'll see you. Deborah Bonham. Oh, cool, I've never seen Deborah Bonham before. So I go to see in Cincinnati in Riverfront, the amphitheater down there by the river. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, which is maybe an hour and a half away. And of course, getting through that parking lot, it's massive. And I was trying to get my wife, come on, honey, we gotta go. And so I didn't come in until, I think it was No Angel. I think it was the last song you did. Yeah. I'm like, okay, great. They're doing the song. Okay, cool. And it was over. It's like, thanks. We'll see you later. I just got here. Damn it. I missed who I wanted to see, But I guess I did get to see you, Pete, later with Paul, which was it was a great day overall. But can you tell me any good stories or just funny happenstances from that tour that maybe you can share with our audience a little bit?
Let's see, the clean ones without swearing and all that kind of. There was one moment where the behind the scenes was all the crew of each band, because they'd have quite a quick turnover and between the band. So, and everybody communicated brilliantly and got on really well. Out of all those three crews, there's I don't know, let's say 35 people in total, maybe 40 people. There was only one complete arsehole in the whole lot, which is quite amazing. It shall remain nameless, but any of our crew listening to this will know exactly who I'm on about. But
Peter Bullick, what goes on tour stays on tour.
Well, it is, yeah. One of the great things was that when I started off on the tour in Utah, the first night of the first show, the amps that I had ordered didn't arrive from England. So I had a couple of Marshalls wired. Now, Marshalls are kind of the ultimate tone and everything, but to get a Marshall to work really nicely, it's got to be cranked really loud. And on a stage with Paul, who wasn't wearing a monitor, he wanted to hear the monitors, he wanted to hear the stage.
Okay.
2 Marshalls cranked up, too loud on stage, for a mix. So I had to turn them down a bit, which at the cost of some tone.
Gotcha.
Anyway, Jeff Beck's guitar tech saw me struggle with the sound and all that kind of thing. So Scully, yeah.
Got to give him a name check.
Oh, yeah, Scully's good.
Such a lovely guy.
And what happened was Jeff had joined the tour from a European tour, and on that European there was a drum tech called Yard Gavrilovich, and he couldn't come and do the American side. Now, Yard Gavrilovich had helped us with the John Bonham Memorial statue a year or two before or something. So we knew Yard, and we'd been to parties together, the whole, as he was part of our little team. So whenever we got to America, Scully came up with Jeff's guitar tech, who actually used to be Rush's guitar tech. He looked after Geddy and Alex.
Oh, wow.
So his stories were great. And, of course, they're all bands that I loved and stuff. So he came up and says, hey, you, Pete, Yard told me I got to look after you. So I've just been touring Europe with Yard. He said, look out for me, Pete. I went, oh, shit, what's your problem? Well, you know, my amps, I use amps called Victory or Comfort over in the UK and Europe and stuff, which are handmade by a chap, Paul Comfort, and Vickers make these things. And so I didn't have this, I had to use Marshall. So he said, well, what Geddy and Alex use out in America is this rock crusher thing. So crank your amps up through this. And I'll see if we can get one for the next show, which was heading down West Coast. And he got on the phone to them, and they didn't have any at the factory. So they sent the team in that night and made me one overnight and hand-delivered it to the show.
Wow.
So I had this thing. So I had 2 Marshalls and 2 Orange amps going through this sort of full blast. And then so it sucks all the power out. So you're getting the amps driven, but then the volume, they then control the volume that goes to the speakers. So you could really get great tone like you're blasting the place. So we got on. The other side of that was a few nights later, Jeff didn't do a sound check in the afternoon. So Scully comes up and says, oh, Pete, you couldn't do me a favor. I've had to get Jeff's favorite amp repaired, and it's now back, but he's not sound checking today. Could you check it for me? So I went, yeah, sure. So I'm in this amphitheater all up in there with Jeff Beck's. He puts Jeff Beck's guitar on me, you know, cranks me through Jeff's rig and says, okay, Pete, go at concert volume. So this is about, 4:00 in the afternoon. And I was thinking, I haven't played any Jeff Beck songs since I was a kid, you know. I used to have a go at, Beck's Bolero, every guitar song. And another solo that I loved was the solo that Jeff did on People Get Ready with Rod Stewart, you know.
Huge one.
So I used to know that. So. But when you haven't played it for 25 years or 30 years, and you're in an amphitheater at full volume, you sort of fumble on the neck. You sort of try and find the bit a bit, so you're not straight there. I was doing that at full volume. I just realised there are about 10,000 people outside queuing to see Jeff Beck. And they're hearing Jeff Beck guitar solos played really badly.
It was the quickest return of tickets. Can we have our money back?
I started thinking, 10,000 people out there going, oh shit, Jeff's let himself go a bit. Maybe we'll not.
Oh man, that's good stuff. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and you all were great that night. I mean, the rain came down about the second song, so everyone on the fringes kind of pushed into the middle. I think Paul said, "Oh, what a great crowd!" I'm like, "Well, they're actually just trying to stay dry, Paul." But yeah, no, they're excited to see you, and you guys are doing great.
I remember that. I remember.
Yeah, no firm songs, no All the King's Horses. I was a little disappointed, but I know that between Free and Bad Company, there's a lot to get through there, so I understand.
It was going to be all Free songs, but he thought being in America, we should do some Bad Company as well.
I actually think as well that you got in late. I don't think that was your fault because they put the wrong time on the ticket. So we had to really get onto them about that because we were going on half an hour before the ticket time. So that was what the problem was. So, we had to get onto them and say, guys, it would help if the right time was on the ticket,
Yeah, so fans can come see us and not miss us. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I had a woman, I don't know whether it was there, because I would come out the front with the guitarist I was working with, Ian Hatton. Ian has been an old friend of mine since we were in our teens. We grew up in the same place in the UK, and he's still a great friend now. I'm seeing him next week. So he's a great guy. And he was in a band with me in the early 80s, but he went on to play with Jason Bonham in Bonham. And they had quite a big selling album, actually. Their first album came out.
It was big in the States. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've been such great friends, and he just interpreted what I needed to do because it was a big thing with my band playing with Paul and me being incredibly vulnerable, just on the stage. And when I told Ian about this, I said, listen, it's just going to be me and you. we're doing these type of shows. And he went, oh my good grief, you're kidding me. You know, we're just going to walk out. I said, we'll be fine. It'll be fine. And it was brilliant. It was really good. But I think at the show that you're talking about, after that, it got changed on the ticket times because there was people, I went out the front to watch the guys, which I did every night so that, you know, the next day we could tighten some things up or whatever. So I was still sort of working with them really,
sure.
And what worked and all of that sort of stuff. But I got mobbed by this woman and a few other people. She was crying her eyes out, saying she was so mad that she'd missed it. Like you, she'd walked in on the last bit and there was a queue of people saying the same thing. They were all getting uptight. And she started crying. She said, I've waited a long time to see you, you know. And she said, I've come all this way. And she got really upset. So I said, listen, the best thing you can do is all email the promoter and just say, get the ticket time changed. So from that day, it got changed.
Well, and hopefully she could hear you a little later this year in America, because I know you want to get back to the States to tour this record. I want to be respectful of your time here, so I've got to talk to you about some of these amazing tracks on the album. Yeah. And I think you kick it off. We talk a lot about sequencing. You know, you have to start off with a strong track. You want to finish it a certain way. You know, from the first track, you need to go up, but don't blow it out. Then you got to, you know, smooth it out a little bit. And See You Again is an amazing song. Of course, we're big Stones fans here on The Wolf. And that's a Bernard Fowler song here. It's lamentful, you know, for you, Deborah, but I think it's got some real clean, great tone and clean guitar work from you, Peter. I mean, this is just like you're meant to sing the blues, and this is a great showcase, great way to start the album. Yeah,
I'm used to doing the set lists, and so and exactly what you're saying. You know, when you play live, you've got to have. It has to balance. The songs have to go merge into one another but be different enough and take you up and then bring you back a bit. You can't have everything at high octane all the way through. So you've got to move it. So
not since we gave up the gear.
Right. Yeah.
Oh God.
You're not a punk band after all, right?
That's it. So I'm used to doing the set list. So the sequencing for me, it wasn't an issue. You know, I just sort of played around with them and sort of found how each one, you know, went into the other, and how I felt then as a whole listening to the album, whether it took me on the journey I wanted it to do. But we started with Bernard's song. I mean, firstly, you know, Bernard Fowler, he's just, I mean, what a great singer-songwriter in his own right. You know, I know that everybody knows him for the Stones mainly, but that Burra album is just fantastic that See You Again was on. So, and I loved the track from the get-go. So it was how to bring us to it. And it sort of just naturally happened. And from the intro bit,
I heard a great review of that. I like this review that we got of See You Again, where they thought the intro was a bit reminiscent of Whiskey in the Jar.
Oh, Thin Lizzy, yeah, Thin Lizzy.
They said it had a kind of a Celtic feel intro to, obviously not note for note, but the vibe it created, which I didn't intend to do. But when I read this, I went, oh, that's
but
quite
can you remember what we had the intro bit on Bernard's version? It is, who is it? Was it Ravi Shankar on? I can't remember who it was on the instrument at the beginning of Bernard's song. But I said we can't do that. We can't use violin. We can't. You know, we need something else. And Pete just started playing and just doing, and I went, that's it. Just run with that. And he just did it, you know. It was brilliant. I just went, wow. For me, it was a bit more Gilmore-y, actually. I just loved it. And then that was like bang. And we opened the set now with that live.
Oh, good.
Because he can just stand there with a light on him and just play those notes. And instantly everybody's, wow, what's happening?
In the old days, I would have stood there while the intro was happening. I would have rolled a sort of jazz woodbine or something there. Yeah. Just sort of rolled this.
Would you?
And there you go.
Is this in your dreams? Do you have these little dreams?
It's like if I was Louis Stewart, who's a great Irish jazz guitarist. He used to sit and do that. He'd be sitting down, he'd play these wonderful guitars. So it was this sort of improvisational jazz stuff. And then he would sit there. It would come to the drummer would point to Louis to do his guitar bit, and You'd look at him and he'd just go,
yeah, okay.
Roll one up.
You're nowhere near that late.
then he'd put the cigarette down and he'd pick up his whiskey and he'd go.
You're nowhere near that laid back.
Then he'd play a couple of licks on the guitar.
You've got quite.
Then he'd pick up his pint of Guinness that was sitting beside the whiskey. You go,
My favorite, yes.
put that down. And then off he'd go, another bunch of licks. And you just think, man, this is so cool. We were like, I don't know, 14 years old, 15 years old in the bar watching this guy go.
I think you're far more angst. You've got more edge. So you wouldn't be able to play that like that.
Well, you wail at the end of this one, right? I mean, at the end of this, you're playing. You're not just sitting down playing on this one, right?
No. Oh, he has these little dreams about himself. It's just, I think he still thinks you're like 22, don't you? Actually, that's the other thing that goes on in your little dream.
But I am 22. I'm just 22 backwards.
And you're usually.
Oh no, hang on, that's the same, isn't it?
And he's usually with Pamela Anderson as well. That's his other little.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a more modern day equivalent, but it shows my age.
No, actually, it was Raquel Welch, wasn't it?
Raquel Welch.
Oh.
Hey guys, this is Chris from My Rock and Roll Heaven, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London podcast.
All right, well, let's talk about the single. Can't You See What You're Doing to Me? An old Albert King classic. And to me, this is classic blues, like an AAB blues, but it's rocking. It's not a down, dirty, low down blues. It's up, and with some sick guitar from you, Mr. Bullock. But would you have a guest in on the Hammond organ, which really added some nice flavor to it?
Yeah, that's Paul Brown from. He's in the Waterboys now, but we knew him from the days of Ann Peebles and Bobby Rush. And I don't know if you've heard of Bobby Rush out in the States.
He's amazing.
Fantastic blues soul singer, but he's also got a lot of humor about him as well. So he's a very, very funny guy, very entertaining. And Paul Brown was like an absolute mad Hammond player.
It was crazy watching them because, with Anne and all of her band, they're all Ann Peebles, they're all these fantastic black soul players, Bobby Rush, same, blues, black soul, incredible. And you have Paul Brown there, who was in Europe for a while, the 80s rock band.
No, Survivor.
Survivor, not Europe, yeah. He was in Survivor. And he's got all this blonde,
reddy blonde hair, white skin.
White skin, but all this hair, and he dresses in real 70s pimp clothes,
Nice.
So he's got the white suit with the flares, the big heels, he's got his patchouli oil on,
He bought these suits off genuine old guys, like Teenie Hodges and people like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He bought their old stage clothes off. Yeah.
And so there he is with these guys.
And play with these guys and says, hey man, you don't have to be getting rid of any of your wardrobe.
But he's a crazy.
So he's got all their clothes.
He's a real, to coin an expression, a crazy cat on it. He's just he just goes. I've just never heard anybody play like that. He's just really out there, and he's such a good friend. And again, it was organic because the guys did it. Jared Lewis is playing some fantastic piano, and I said, you know what? We need Paul on this. We so need Paul. And rang him up. He's going, man, awesome. He's so beautiful. He's a beautiful soul. He really is. He does a lot of work for Music Cares and paying it forward and all that.
We had another couple of guys on there as well with on keyboards from Portishead.
Not on that track.
No, not on that track. On the other tracks, John Baggett and stuff like that. So
we'll get to that.
Okay. Well, we might not get to it if you talk this much about that one song.
Okay.
All right, well, then let's move to the next track because, look, Bleeding Muddy Water really stands out to me. And this is more of a low-down, dirty blues. And you hear it say, okay, well, is that Howlin' Wolf? Is that, John Lee Hooker? Is that Robert Johnson? Like, no, that's Mark Lanigan, and that would throw a lot of people off. The bass in this one is really great too. Not to mention what you two are doing, but this was such a standout to me, and you could stretch this one out. Did you know Mark? I mean, we just lost Mark as we're recording this maybe 6 weeks ago. Did you know him, and what was it that caused you to choose this one?
No,
we didn't really know him.
No, we didn't. We didn't know him. We knew. We
definitely didn't know him, but we knew of him. That came via Gary suggested.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew Mark. I knew of Mark.
Obviously, we knew he'd done Reading Trees and stuff like that. So the track was one of the ones suggested. We went, shit, this sounds really.
It was a friend
mad.
of friend of mine, friend of ours, who was helping us over in Princeton, New Jersey, and we talked about Mark Lanigan, and he sent me the Blues Funeral album, and I was just blown away by him, and I just thought that this is a track I really want to do. So it sort of got parked there in my brain that one's one that we really should do.
And again, it's not like an obvious blues song to a blues audience or anything like that. We could take this from
I think Mark
aside and.
I think Mark was pretty much underrated as a singer-songwriter in his own right. I think he was, some of the stuff that I've heard him do is just fantastic. And then he started to work with John Paul Jones as well. So he did the album, I think, just before he passed. Well, the last one before he passed away had some input with John Paul Jones. So an amazing singer-songwriter. And from listening, as soon as I heard Bleeding Muddy Water, I just knew that's something we could definitely do. And so when it was time to do it, it was great. It was one that just naturally came. We just started doing it. And then I just felt like it needed a little something in it. And I could hear a piano part. So I said to G, I could hear this little thing going through it. And it wasn't until it was all done and I sat back and listened to the whole thing, I thought, wow, this sounds great. But you know what? Doesn't half remind me of No Quarter of Led Zeppelin. I don't know why. I could feel a bit of No Quarter going on. I think it was the piano bit. And I didn't know at that point that John Paul Jones was working with Mark. So it was bizarre that I sort of felt it in the track. But yeah, I absolutely love that track. And live, it's just kicking.
Yeah, it's one of the live ones.
It's really amazing to do that. And I just wanted to have sent it. I would have loved to have sent it to him. That was the plan. We were going to send it to him and just to sort of say, listen, we think you're incredible and we've done this version and I hope we've tried to pay as much respect to you. Hope you love it. And then he passed away. Because
that's the thing with the songs. A lot of time spent mainly to show absolute respect for these writers and singers that we admire that have done the songs originally. So we don't want to come in and think that we can, you've done that, I'll do it like this.
No.
So we kind of liked what we did as well. So we wanted them to. So we shared it amongst some of the people. And the Chris Wilson track, the last one, which you'll probably talk about.
The Change.
We haven't got to that.
We sent it to his widow. He died a few years ago.
We're not talking about that one.
I know. But we got lovely messages from her. She was absolutely touched. The whole family were touched by that.
Well, I'm sure Mark would have been proud of what you did. It's amazing. It is haunting a little bit like No Quarter. I hear that now that you mentioned that. But it fit in with all these blues songs that were 100 years old. Well, some of them are 100 or 80 years old. And you would have thought, the uninitiated, like, okay, well, that's an old time blues that they just kind of put together.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more modern there. So no, good on you there. And then Trouble Blues, here's another low down, dirty, Hellhounds on My Trail, kind of a song that I guess I heard the Sam Cooke version growing up, but I guess Charles Brown, who Ray Charles had to cover a lot back in his day coming up. That's one of his old tunes from like the 40s. Yeah.
I grew up listening to exactly the same as you, listening to Sam Cooke doing it, and I've always loved it. And I really, it was one of those moments where I did think, what the heck have I done? Because Sam Cooke, I absolutely love Sam Cooke. I love Ray Charles, no doubt about that. But I thought, what have I done, to do a Ray Charles song? But I love the song so much. When we went in the studio, we started to do it, and I was like, no, this isn't working, because we were going too much down the same tempo, or
It's like if you didn't have the right ideas at the start, you had a default mechanism where you just played the song like it had already been done.
Gotcha.
Which of course is no good. So.
No, because
so we do it like it had been done. We go, well, that was great, but no. And so I'm sort of stood there going, no, this isn't working. It's not how I've envisaged it. I don't know how I envisage it yet, but it will get to me in a minute. And I just went, do you know what? Let's just stop. Just give me a straight drum
straight drums in much slower time, just straight 4/4 drum, really slow, and that's all. And none of you guys play, and I'm going to sing. And I just sang a cappella over it, and we were there. It was like, that is it. That is it. And then we just started to build it a bit. People put some guitar, fantastic guitar around it.
Oh, you're bending some strings at the end of this one, Mr. Bullock.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And I guess listen to it. We sat by the. Oh, here's a good name drop. We sat by the River Severn in the Black Country in the Midlands of England, in a little riverside cabin, playing at full blast out the back with Robert Plant listening to it, and came to that solo, and he just looked at me after it was dead quiet. He just looked at me after, touch of Peter Green there.
Yes,
he
indeed.
Very pleased.
I'll take that. Thank God he said it was just a touch of Peter Green and not completely Peter Green, but So.
No, it sounded great, and it was a whole different reworking, but it just came from that sort of, let's just stop, let's do the drums, let's just get something going with the drums, and that's where it came, and it sort of had that. It went right back into that blues by just having a straight drum beat. It made it very dark, whereas I think when Sam Cooke did it, it was a lot more light. It was, as in the production and the arrangement, was a lot lighter and faster. But this went into that very dark Mississippi sort of vibe for me, and I thought that'll do it.
I think I'm just thinking now, after when I think of the sound on that, all the space echoes and stuff on the guitar. It's very Albatross, wasn't it? With that kind of
the old Fleetwood Mac sound,
the haunting guitar and stuff. Maybe that's what that.
I want to be respectful of your all's time because I just have a couple more questions. I do want to praise you a lot on this "When the World Comes to an End" song. Seems like it's a gospel song a bit to me, but you're throttling a lot here, Deborah. You're holding back, and then you're revving up your voice to really hit some of this stuff, and then you're pulling back a little bit here and there. Is this one you're going to be able to recreate live? Because this has got some amazing singing on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd love to have a go. I mean, the only issue, we've got to find the parts that will work live, because I did layer this a bit, I put in some extra stuff just to build it up and got the guys to do quite a few parts. So I think live we're going to have to find, a
few percussion bits in there, and I think there's a mandolin. There's a mandolin, there as well.
But we can.
I thought I heard a mandolin. Yeah,
we've got to just figure out and make the parts so that they work live, But I love this one. I love this. I heard this done by. It's an old gospel hymn from way back. And I heard Ashley Cleveland do it. And I thought, I love that. I really love that song. And again, the lyric, it's a bit sort of poignant right now with all the crap going on in the world. But
absolutely.
It's a great song. It's all about the gospel. And, while we were on the Stars Align, no, it wasn't Stars Align. We went back to the States in 2019 and did a few shows on the East Coast, like in New York, the Cutting Room, Darrell Hall's place, Levon Helm's place up in Woodstock, and
Woodstock show.
Woodstock, and
nice, very good.
There was a really old 1930s cinema theatre, and they were showing Amazing Grace, Aretha Franklin's film, where she's in the church singing. And I just sat there in this little theatre in I can't remember the place that it was. It was a great little place, but it was a real old cinema, very small, still got all the stars of the silver screen up on the wall, fantastic. And I just watched her deliver this incredible vocal of these gospel songs. And I love gospel, I love all of that. So that's sort of how that inspired it a bit, because we hadn't done the album then. So when I came back, I had an eye on Ashley Cleveland's version and a bit of Aretha Franklin going on and that whole gospel thing. So, it was great.
Well, that's great. That's great. And then I feel like that When It Don't Come Easy, this is like the Weary Road blues song. This is like, when are we going to get home again? That everyone, especially artists like yourself, like when you're on that midnight train or the bus, it's like, when are we going to get home again? But I think Gerard has a good chance to kind of show off a little bit on this track. Yeah.
He played some beautiful piano on that. I mean, the whole thing, the song, it's a Patty Griffin song. This this was suggested to me by Robert Plant, because of course he played with.
I've seen them play together. Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, have a listen to it. I mean, Patty's an amazing songwriter.
Well, Marco Giovino would have been on drums then when you saw them, and he's on drums on our album. So.
On a few of the tracks, he is. Not on this one.
He was in the Band of Joy with Patty Griffith.
Yes, okay.
But this was on this track. It's Richard. But we took the track. It's a very different version, but it just screamed out that sort of 3/4 time blues thing to me. So, and again, a little bit gospel as well. You know, we got a bit of fantastic Hammond on there as well. Again, that's John Baggott from Portishead and Massive Attack, and again, Robert Plant's Sensational Space Shifters. So yeah, it was just such a great. And then the lyric, and it was a one take. This one for me vocally. I nearly screwed it up because Peter played this incredible guitar solo. G's doing this beautiful piano, and the lyric, it just resonated. And I went to come in, and I could feel my voice starting to go. You know, I got really emotional, and I kept thinking, "Come on, Deb, don't screw it up, because we got to do it all again." And once you've got to that point to try and do it again, you lose a bit of that, you know. But anyway, I got through it. It's great song.
Well, the whole album is great, and I am very hopeful to see you doing a bit of it live, and I can't wait to. I've been listening to it. Dave from Tenacity sent it to me. I've been listening to it over and over, but I'm a physical guy. I can't wait to get the actual one in my hands and put it on the player. That's just the way I am, so I'm looking forward to that in a big way. I want to tell you a quick. What's that?
I think they're about to arrive in a few days. The actual first physical copies.
I want to do vinyl as well. I'm trying to persuade the label to do vinyl on it, because I really want to do vinyl. So we'll see.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let me tell you a quick story before I get you to a question that I want to ask. We had a writer on recently. Her name's Christy Alexander Hallberg, and she wrote a novel. It's called Searching for Jimmy Page. And it's about a young woman, a teenage woman in the 80s, who has to go on a quest to find Jimmy Page. I'm not going to give away too much of the story. So she comes to England, and she goes to Scotland and Wales and everywhere in between to his homes and all the old Led Zeppelin haunts. And in it, she tells a story of her going to pay homage to John's grave, going up to Redditch to pay her respects, which is a true story. What is also a true story, which didn't make it into the book, was the day she went, you were there. And you all talked for a while. And she decided not to put that in the book because that even sounds too far-fetched even for a fiction book. As I went to John Bonham's grave and his sister was there to greet me. But, you know, her older brother, who's about 10 years older than her, is a drummer and got her into rock and roll. And she said, Deborah was so gracious. And that we weren't just talking about Bonzo, this huge rock star. We're talking about our brothers who we loved, who were drummers, who got us into rock music, you know. And I was just hearing her tell the story. I'm like, that is amazing and special time moment for you. But just the sense I get from you in this hour we spent in some of the interviews I've read and seen with you, it's not a unique story. That a lot of people want to come share their passion for John or for Led Zeppelin, and that you're very gracious about it. It must be hard when you have your own life and your own work that needs to be discussed in Forbes magazine or anywhere else, and they just want to talk about the past. But it seems like you make room for that for them, and I don't know if it's life changing, but I feel like it's life affirming for a lot of the people who do that. So is that who've had the opportunity? So is it something you've shied away from, or that you've grown into, or you just realize, hey, these are people who love my brother like I do, and they have something to say, and giving them some time is a good thing.
Pretty much that. I mean, you know, it's an absolute part of me, you know, from when he joined Zeppelin when I was 6. So it's always been a part of me. My brother's always, you know, he's been there since I was born. He was 14 when I was born, and he was my big brother, and we were close. He was a beautiful, beautiful man, you know, and there's not a day goes by that I don't miss him. Same with my other brother, Michael. There was only 2 years between those two. Michael was 12 years older than me, and he sadly passed away. So, yeah, and they were funny. They were really, really funny guys, and we had some great, great times. So musically, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. It used to be, not so much now. It was just expectations of people thinking, oh, you know, oh, is she jumping on the bandwagon? Or it would be, oh, I hope she's going to do Led Zeppelin, you know. And I got hounded by various people saying, you know, we think it'd be great. We got this idea. We want you and some dancers around you. He was sat there because we were in a band together at the time. They totally dissed him. And it was, and we're going to do Led Zeppelin disco. I was like, and he just stood up and went, I'll get me coat then.
Good work, Pete. Yeah.
Oh,
gotta be kidding me.
You know, I mean, really. So some of those.
I mean, maybe if we'd done it with Nile Rodgers or the Bee Gees.
Oh yeah, now that could have been different with Nile Rodgers. Absolutely.
Anything with Nile Rodgers would be great. Sure, yeah, but
I wasn't going to do Led Zeppelin, but anyway. But talking about Led Zeppelin, you know, they were the biggest single influence on me throughout my life. So yeah, and I'm so proud of what John achieved. I mean, that's why we did the memorial for him, this beautiful bronze memorial in Redditch, that we teamed up with Teenage Cancer Trust as well, because we raised 3 times the money we needed for the memorial. So Teenage Cancer Trust got a big donation, and it set up the John Bonham outreach nurses for across the West Midlands. So it's a great legacy for him. And it continues to give, because people go to the memorial and there's a lovely little plaque about Teenage Cancer Trust on the back, and people tend to then just go and make a little donation. So it's helping to fund nurses take care of kids across the West Midlands, which is great. So yeah, I mean, this whole thing, I don't mind talking about him, and especially, you know, with that lady, if she'll know exactly what it is that I've gone through, losing her brother, because at the end of the day, it's your brother. It's, you know, he's my nephew's and my niece's dad, and my mom's son, my mom and dad's son, and Michael's brother. I mean, it affected us very badly. So keeping his memory alive is quite wonderful in a lot of ways, you know. And sometimes it just suddenly hits me, and I think, it's still now, you know, it'll bring tears to my eyes, and I get a bit maudlin or just missing him, really. But if I, you know, sometimes it will just get me. But no, I'm happy to share stuff, because at the end of the day, he was a very, very special man. So they both were, both brothers. It's
kind of you, and it does keep him alive in our minds, and our hearts, and our spirits. You know, you want to tell folks where they can learn about you, whether it's on your website or social media, or how to find more, or when the album drops.
Easiest website is deborahbonham.com. So it's just that spelling of Deborah, which is DEBORAH. DeborahBonham.com, and that has little buttons on it that links you to the Facebooks and the YouTubes and all that. But yeah, we're on all those usual places, Twitter and stuff. Yeah. And Quarter Valley Records is the record company. Records coming out 29th of April, but there is a link to order it right now, so that you actually get it the day it comes out. And the single's out now as well. There's links on there for the single.
Well, look, hey, amazing work. And best of luck on the tour. I hope that very much that I get to see you. Milton Keynes is not that far. I might run up for that show. We'll see.
Where are you based?
I'm in St. John's Wood in London.
Oh, yeah. Crikey, that's where I was.
Oh, we played 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago in London.
We were at the
Powerhouse
in Camden.
Yeah.
The old Dingwalls.
In Camden, I could have walked.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you could have walked home with Gerard. He lives in Primrose Hill.
Thank you kindly. It has been so much fun to talk with you all today, and I feel like we could talk for another couple of hours sometime.
Yeah.
So, maybe after your tour, maybe you want to come back on, we can talk some more.
Yeah, I mean,
I could reserve a spot at the Clifton for us.
Do you know what? That sounds great. Lovely talking to you, Mac. Really, really lovely. And thank you so much for your kind words and having us on your show. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, it's been lovely talking to you. And all the success in the world with the album and the coming tour.
Thank you.
It's amazing. And I can't wait to see you live again.
Thank you. Fantastic. Oh, well, we'll let you know. We'll have a look at some of the dates, and if you can make any, we'd love to see you.
Yeah, keep in touch when you see us coming here. Definitely.
Well, that wraps up episode number 72 of The Ugly American Werewolf in London with my interview with Deborah Bonham and Peter Bullick of Bonham Bullick, who have an incredible new blues album out that I really encourage you guys to check out. If you like blues guitar, you like soulful singing, you're going to like this one a lot. And I really want to thank them both for their generosity of spirit and generosity of time and the great stories that they shared there. It's kind of crazy to learn. We had a great conversation that I think you heard, but also some stuff off the record that was really fun for me to hear. It turns out they lived right around the corner from me about 30 years ago when they first moved to London. We shared the same neighborhood pub. So if you have the chance, definitely go out and catch them on the road and pick up Bonham Bullick. It is out April 29th. Now, as usual, folks, we want you to subscribe and download and call us out on Twitter at @ugly_werewolf, at ActionJack72. Let us know the records, the bands, the concerts, the DVDs, the rock properties that you want us to review. Let's all say hi to Jackson out there and hope that his family situation is all resolved so we can have him back on next week's show. Be sure to download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, be it Apple, Amazon, Good Pods, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. And if you're thinking about it, hey, give us a positive review. It just helps us find more rock fans like you. And if we hear about it or read it, we might just read it on the show. Now, I honestly can't tell you what we're going to be doing next week. There's a lot of great things happening here at The Wolf right now. We're excited about, and we can't wait to share with you real soon. But there are also some things up in the air. So next week's show will be as big a surprise to you all as it is to me. Remember to check us out on PantheonPodcast.com. We're one of a family of about 100 amazing music podcasts on Pantheon. Check them out at Pantheon Pods as well. So proud to be part of the family, and we're going to be interacting with some of our fellow Pantheon podcast shows in the near future. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, rock and rollers, to all you rock and rollers all around the world, be cool and stay safe.